the PowerPoint. I'll start with the beginning. It's a quote from the late Republican U.S. Senator Mark Hatfield of Oregon, who said, "We stand by as children starved by the millions because we lack the will to eliminate hunger. Yet we have found the will to develop missiles capable of flying over the polar cap and landing within a few hundred feet of their target. This is not innovation. It is a profound distortion of humanity's purpose on Earth." And my name is Sam Daley-Harris. I founded the Anti-Poverty Lobby Results 38 years ago, co-founded the Microcredit Summit 23 years ago, and my current work is with Civic Courage. And Civic Courage trains nonprofits to create structures of support that can dissolve the powerlessness that all of us, each and every one of us feels about politics and our role with government. Let me see if I can get this to work now. Okay. So my talk's going to focus on one aspect of activism, and hopefully it'll inspire you to take a look at your own activism, the activism that your organization promotes or the lack thereof. Three main messages. You can make a profound difference with your voice as a citizen on big issues. Number two, you probably haven't because of your sense of powerlessness with government and politics. If you find an organization committed to dissolving the powerlessness, you can make a profound difference. My story in short, I have a bachelor's degree and master's degree in music and played percussion instruments in the Miami Philharmonic Orchestra for 12 years and started an anti-poverty lobby 38 years ago. And people say, what was that about? And basically, I lost a friend around college graduation day in '64. Robert Kennedy was assassinated in '68 around college graduation in '68. And I started asking the questions of purpose. Why am I here? What am I here to do? Went to a presentation 9 years later in '77 on ending world hunger. Realized I wasn't hopeless about solutions, which I was at the time, but I was hopeless about human nature. People would just never get around to doing what could be done. There was one human nature I had some control over on my own, so I got involved. In '78, '79, I spoke to 7,000 high school students on ending world hunger, read quotes calling for the political will, and asked them the name of their member of Congress, and fewer than 3% could tell me the name of their member of Congress, and that's where results started. We started lobbying in the early 80s on child survival, maternal and child health. At the time, UNICEF reported 41,000 kids around the world were dying every day from largely preventable causes. Results lobbied year in, year out, 85, 86, 80, you name it, every year. And recently, UNICEF reported that 41,000 child deaths has dropped to 15,300. In a New York Times interview 5 years ago, Kul Gautam, a former deputy executive director of UNICEF, said, quote, "To a great extent, it was because of the receptivity created by results that U.S. funding for child survival increased so dramatically, and that led other countries to come on board." So, look at the top line of maternal and child health. Last year, President Trump took office, and maternal and child health was funded at $814.5 million. The president, without a lot of time to cut it even deeper, called for an 8% cut. Results volunteers got 142 Republicans and Democrats in the Senate to sign a letter to the top appropriators saying, do not do the cut. And when they finally ended up, it was a 2% increase instead of an 8% cut. In the 16 years since the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, TB, this is the Millennium Development Goals over here. In the 16 years since the Global Fund started, they've saved with their partners 27 million lives, and in 2017 provided 17.5 million people with antiretroviral therapy. Look at the bottom line now. This year, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, TB, and malaria is funded at $1.35 billion. The president asked for a $410 million, 31% cut. Results volunteers got 162 Republicans and Democrats in the House. 30. Now, you don't do this with cold calls. You have to have had a relationship to get your Republican or Democrat representative to oppose a presidential cut to foreign aid. This is all relational. This is a politics of love. So in fact, the committees have acted. The House and Senate committees have rejected the 31% cut. So if our voices as citizens can make a profound difference on big issues, why don't more of us get involved? It leads to our predicament, our sense of powerlessness. Francis Moore LePay, who wrote Diet for a Small Planet, in a more recent book wrote, our real problem is not a heating planet or rampant malnutrition. We only have one real problem, our own feelings of powerlessness to manifest the solutions right in front of our noses. So the groups at Civic Courage coaches are committed to dissolving that powerlessness. Here's a common view of most groups doing advocacy. I talked to the head of organizing of a very big group that you would know really well, and he said to me, we can't have our volunteers write letters to the editor or op-eds because they'll get it wrong and misrepresent the organization. That's not dissolving the powerlessness. That's continuing the powerlessness. One of the groups I coach, Citizens Climate Lobby, their volunteers had 4,288 letters, op-eds, and editorials published last year. So they're saying, what do we got to do to make sure they get it right? Their volunteers have enrolled 43 Republicans and 43 Democrats in joining a House Climate Solutions Caucus, when 4 years ago you couldn't have gotten one Republican to put their name on anything with climate. So in the title, how does it work? When volunteers raise their hand and say, I'm in what? Well, it starts with a 4-part new group training. And when the training's over, it shifts over to a monthly conference call, month in and month out, guest speakers, Q&A, grassroots victory, training. And so these are some of the groups. I'm going to pass around a sign-up sheet if you'd like to be connected to any of them. Results on ending poverty, Citizens Climate Lobby on reversing climate change, preventing nuclear war with North Korea. That's a good goal. That would be the Quakers, FCNL. Money out of politics and overturning Citizens United, American Promise. You can let me know on that little clipboard I'll pass around in a moment. One aspect of the Civic Courage process is a spiritual approach to politics, a politics of love. A woman who joined CCL said she was suffering from climate trauma. She would read Bill McKibben's book Earth, and she would weep at home, and she would weep at work. 18 months after joining CCL, she described her experience visiting and meeting with 20 congressional offices as sacred and profound. Another CCL volunteer was quoted as saying, Tom Moyer, a CCL volunteer who works with Representative Mia Love, Republican of Utah, said it's impossible to convince anyone of anything if you fundamentally don't like them. Quote, if you walk in thinking they're an idiot and evil, you're done from the start. It doesn't matter how logical your position is. You have to put yourself in a place where you can find something to respect in them. So you might have a low opinion of your member of Congress, but it's really up to you whether you want to be right about that or you want to cause a transformation. Because we will never address climate change, poverty, money and politics, etc. with Democrats only or Republicans only. It has to be a bipartisan initiative. You can make a profound difference on big issues with your voice as a citizen. You probably haven't if you're normal. If you're not normal, you have. If you're normal, you've not made a difference because of your powerlessness and resignation about politics, especially federal politics. If you find an organization committed to dissolving that powerlessness, you can have a profound impact. You want to find a group that can help you move out of your comfort zone on the left and over to where the magic happens on the right. That's likely to be a group coached by Civic Courage, and I'll pass this sheet around that you'll be able to see. I'm going to close not with this quote, which is great, but another one. The author's name is Alex Steffen. I'm going to say it twice and sit down. Optimism is a political act. Those who benefit from the status quo are perfectly happy with a large population of people who believe nothing will get any better. In fact, these days, cynicism is obedience. I love that. In fact, these days, cynicism is obedience. What's really radical is being willing to look at the magnitude and difficulty of the problems we face and still insist we can solve those problems. Optimism is a political act. Those who benefit from the status quo are perfectly happy with a large population of people who believe nothing will get any better. In fact, these days, cynicism is obedience. What's really radical is being willing to look at the magnitude and difficulty of the problems we face and still insist we can solve those problems. Thanks.